Hey, what's good with the YouTube, man? It's your boy Rojo. This is the Rojo Room. So check it out, man. Yesterday I talked about going to San Quentin, to the reception center, as well as my first trip to the hole there. I figured today we'll touch on the headquarters, Pelican Bay. So where we left off on the last video was basically I had got validated. I wasn't even, part of an organization at that point in time. However, because I wouldn't cooperate with IGI and tell them the things they wanted to know, they went ahead and fabricated some things on my validation packet. Because none of the stuff they had on me was true. I wasn't even in the gang. So all the stuff that they made up, I don't even know, bro. Just some bullshit talking about who I associated with. And, well, I'm on that yard. I have no choice but to associate with. They said, like, tagging they found in my cell. Like, come on, bro. I didn't have no incidents at that point in time that pointed to any kind of gang affiliation in real life. So anyway, once I get validated and I tell the homies, I'm like, I might as well join. You know what I mean? I was thinking about it already anyway. So, hey, I'm already taking the punishment for this. Let's go ahead and rock it. And let's rock it. You know what I mean? So, I started learning all the concepts, bonds, and format, household security, HHPs, policy, establishing a main line, weaponry, things of that nature. And, the schooling is pretty vigorous. From the day I joined, I was basically at the minimum, very minimum, was 3 essay assignments a week. And what you do is you break down the bonds or the format. You start with, the bonds, or you start with the format. I don't remember which one I got first. I want to say it was the format. And basically every part of it you break down, so say like, our future behind these walls, whatever, I'm not going to get into it, but let's say that you would break that down, what it means to you, what it means to the group as a whole, why it's beneficial, and why it's detrimental if you don't follow this. You know what I mean? So each part of that would be at least a 500-word essay, and you get one assignment every time you went to yard, and maybe more throughout the week. I always had more throughout the week because I was always fucking up. I was always sleeping, acting an ass and shit. So I always had extra shit I had to do. You know what I mean? But so you learn all that stuff, break that down, and the same thing with the bonds. Each bond will be 500 or 1,000 words about why this bond is necessary. How you plan to utilize it for the betterment of everyone, and so on. Man, just in Quentin alone, I probably did each one of those parts, all the bonds and each part of the format, 2 or 3 times. So anyway, I end up, I want to say I went home from the 6-yard. I paroled. I was out of Washington. I paroled from the 6-yard, go out on the streets. I didn't last that long. I don't remember what the violation was for. Excuse me. I got a new term. I got a couple of years. There's some week, bro. I just took a little plea real quick. They offered me 2. I jumped on it. So, as a bro, I'm already running my county jail when I go through, et cetera. I'm trying to establish it to function, as a household. It's, representing the O. Because as I've told you guys in the past, Contra Costa County was notoriously uneducated, and unstructured. So while I was there, I worked with some individuals. One of them was actually a guest we had on here, Payaso from Concord, Looney, Crazy, Silas. I tried to work with them dudes and school them on what things are really about. So I get a violation, what I mean? I go through Martinez. I end up hitting San Quentin, 6-yard. I'm validated now, you know what I mean? So I go right to the hole. And there's no C's on the yard. The only C's in Quentin were the homies on death row. So who was there was Flaco, Javier Zubiati from Santa Rosa, and Porky from Daly City, and myself. All the other bros were nowhere near the same level of education that we had at the time. You know what I mean? So what we did is, I've mentioned this before, is we kind of ran things by committee. myself, Flacco, and Porky from Daly City, as to make sure that we were doing the right thing, essentially according to policy. When you have three people that were fairly new as pros, although our education was immaculate, especially when it comes to me and Flacco. Porky was he was a little different kind of a cat, but he knew what was going on. So we agreed, all three of us, to run the institution as a group. Therefore, having three brains would be better than one. That's the decision we made to, make sure that we didn't make the wrong call and end up, because we had to make some pretty important calls as far as, whole taking off other group segments, that we feel violated us. We had to lay all of San Quentin down behind some things that happened. And, with three minds, debating the pros and cons, we figured we'd probably be in the good, and we ended up being spot on. So anyway, I'm in Quentin, we're basically running the show. I end up going to Pelican Bay. Me and Porky go together, pull up on the bus together. We were cellies. They shot us to C12. C12 at the time had Tibbs, they had DC, had Corny, had a boxer from Selma, Lucho Montalvo from Hayward. There was a lot of C's. Little G from Dakota, Little Man from Salas. And we moved right upstairs from Tibbs in DC. Me and Porky were cellies for a couple months, and then I moved downstairs with Wino. Actually, excuse me, I went over there to D-Pod, and I was upstairs from Corny and Boxer and them. We had already been approached while I was first there. After like 2 weeks, we were cleared, and the homie got at us. He's like, "Hey, what do you know about the big homies?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm interested." After, at first we didn't trust them because they were very young. They were like 23, 24 years old, and they were talking about they were both C's. But knowing Tibbs and DC were right there, we went ahead and, expressed, hey, yeah, we want to learn more. So after we were cleared and stuff, Tibbs came to the cell. He's like, "Hey, I heard you guys are interested in learning more about what we do." I'm like, "Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we are." He's like, "Okay, from now on, consider yourselves basically on probation, for the most part. It wasn't official, but we're going to be learning, the basic constitution and the overall agenda of that particular group." So, man, we started getting shot. First, we got shot like, I want to say discipline and conduct, it's part of the Constitution, your expectations or whatever. And he's like, after you read this, you get your final answer if you're interested in making that commitment. So we read that, didn't see nothing too outlandish. Like, yeah, we're down. Anyway, for a minute, they moved me over to D-Pod. I'm over there with Corny. Corny doesn't really work with me that much because I was Tibbs's guy. So I'm only over there a month. I moved back with Tibbs, maybe 2 months. I moved back with Tibbs, but I still up with Wino from Salas, Juan Gallegos. And we're right next door to Tibbs in DC. So, every day we got the whole Constitution. Like a lot of times they didn't give the whole Constitution out. Like as far as, things that weren't your pay grade, like Kakike, functions and qualities of a lieutenant, regiment commander, Kakike, Master General, the Mesa. A lot of C's wouldn't get access to seeing that until it applied to them. You know what I mean? Because there's no reason. But we got all that stuff, man, and we broke it down time after time, essay, verbally, amongst each other. And after a certain amount of time, I don't know what determined that amount of time, but hey, I was about to go home. I had like a month to the crib. And Tibbs came to my cell. He's like, "Hey, I got some bad news for you. You're not going to be approved before you go home. We don't have enough time." I'm like, "Oh, okay, brother, I understand." He's like, "We'll shoot you confirmation on the streets." And basically, he was just fucking with me, though. Because like a week later, he's like, "You guys ready to take that oath?" And same day, me and Wino and Porky took the oath. We had our little ceremony, so to say. And we were deep up in there, man. It was Tibbs, DC, me, Porky, Little Man, and Little G. There were 7 C's in one pond. And like 3 weeks later, I go home. My whole schooling, even though I knew the Constitution, I knew all that, but my main schooling besides that was focusing on establishing street regiments. And the best way to get your ventures going on, ventures being the things that generates income and legal income. I knew legit, illegit. I had a damn business degree when I got it. So, I hit the streets running. Didn't last too long the first time. You know what I mean? I got popped on some stuff. I was trying to get paid, and I ended up getting popped and whatnot, man. But I planted the seed in the community. So I had to sit down again for another, I don't know, like 2 years. I was in C10. I was the block commander in C10 for the homies, and that's when I was set up with Flacco from Santa Rosa, and Troubles from Visalia. And once I got out of that term, that's when things really kicked in. I met Mexican Mike, got everything popping, and established a foothold all through Alameda, Contra Costa. You know what I mean? And I tried to work on Solano and Sonoma, but Sonoma was my nemesis, man. That's what started the end of my career, dealing with the people out there, because both the people I were dealing with were no bueno. They were telling the folks everything that we talked about. You know what I mean? So not only would they already follow me around because they knew, that I was Tibbs's guy and whatnot, I had them people putting my business that they knew into their ear. Plus, people in Pelican Bay were dropping stuff on me. So, hey, I was extremely successful, for that period of time, for a few years before all hell started to break loose. You know what I mean? And we'll get into that a little bit later, man. But I joined at a very young age, but I was ready. I knew everything front to back. You know what I mean? I almost had the whole Constitution memorized. And any of you guys who ever downloaded it or came across it or whatever, see, it's a significant body of work. They used to call me the constitutionalist. You know what I mean? When people had questions, they would tell me. And it don't help that I had really elite penmanship. You know what I mean? And I didn't make no mistakes, no misspellings, no bad punctuation, none of it. So I had to copy it a lot of times. I was Xerox guy. I was Tibbs' secretary. You know what I mean? So with that in mind, you can realize a lot of the things that I was exposed to were above my pay grade. So I was entrusted with a lot of information that wasn't necessarily going to be given to a Category 1 at the time when I was with Tibbs. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, that's basically that. I just wanted to share this part with you guys, man. We're warming up for some more stuff, but it was about a cool 8 months of vigorous education, like more so than you get out of college, as far as expectations, ventures, organized crime type stuff. There's 13 ventures that we participated in. There's probably 15, 16 now because of new technology, man. But it was an experience, man. You know what I mean? And we'll get into street functions. We'll get into, block commander type stuff later. And then we'll get into what ultimately led to the demise of my, status. But it's your boy Rojo. This is the Rojo Room. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll be back at you.